What's up, guys? Welcome to RC Tactical. My name is Matt. I'm here to talk about the SCX 24 B17 Betty. And I was really excited to get it at the very beginning, so I ordered a ton of parts right off the bat. Even before I got it, I was waiting and watching the tracking and stuff, and I couldn't stop ordering parts for it. So one of the first things I read about changing was the steering servo over to an E-maxx. I believe it's a ESO 8MA2, but I think in retrospect I would have went with a MD2 because I just don't like the potentiometer on the analog version. But that's up to you guys, you know. It's a $9 steering servo. It's great for the price, and you can't beat the upgrade that it gives you. It's a lot of torque for the steering, especially when you're crawling on rocks and stuff. I also changed over to you know, the super famous RTG, the motor mod on it. Awesome mod. You know, you can't beat this little guy's performance once you change over the motor. Make sure to grease up your transmission though, because it made a racket after I put it back together. I think it was just because it didn't like being pulled off. The pinion gear didn't like being pulled off the one, put on the other, whatever the case. They do have aftermarket options available for that, but to save the money, why not use the stock stuff? I did change over the electronics. Now that is entirely up to you guys. I did it so I could run the transmitter that I wanted to, but you can keep what you have in there. Spend no money extra and have an awesome little 1/24 scale crawler. And I have a blast with this thing. I absolutely do. And I want to talk about a few things that I've done other than that to make this an awesome little rig, some things for you to consider, and just a few other things that I think you'll enjoy. Alright, a couple things I wanted to show you here. Now there's a mounting tab on the newer servos, the ones that you'd be picking up aftermarket, let's say E-maxx or your reefs, whatever you decide to go with. You want to make sure that you mount that tab in front of the actual mounting plate of the tray for the steering servo. Now a lot of people have issues and they'll mount it too far back in the bay and it causes some linkage issues. You don't want to do that. You know, it's going to just make for a bad time when you're putting it together and a lot of frustrations. I went with the Hot Racing steering servo tray, and it really took a lot of those issues away. But there are ways to modify the stock tray to allow this to work. I went with the RTG, like I said previously. However, this was a drop-in motor made specifically to upgrade an SCX 24 instead of the Barrage units. This one has the holes already pre-drilled and tapped to allow you to mount it straight to a stock transmission setup. Now if you buy a regular Barrage one, you're going to have to either get a aftermarket mounting plate for your motor, or you're going to have to drill two holes opposing the ones that are already there. And you may ask why I have my suspension set up the way I have, and I was trying to gain a lot more travel of the suspension over rocks and, you know, large obstacles, and I did achieve that. However, it comes at a cost of downhill problems. Let me tell you, it'll tip forward a little bit. Obviously I could take some weight off the back and that may help that, but I really like the way it's set up right now for every other circumstance, so I just got to fine-tune that a little tiny bit. You set up your suspension however you want to. I went with these Hot Racing shocks, but the stock ones will work fine. A little bit of messing around with the springs will get you where you want it to be. You can mount them to the frame, or you could mount them down here below. I actually flipped my rear towers and reversed them so I could mount them way further down and allow the shock to pivot. I picked up these weights here from the local hobby shop. They were super cheap, super easy to work with. They're just stick-on type pieces, and they really helped add counterweight where I needed it to. A lot of it on the rear axle here. Looking at the truck from the bottom here, you can see I got some metal links here. I got the Hot Racing ones. If you do plan to get these for the Betty, you have to purchase them for the Deadbolt. Whenever I was waiting for this truck to come in, I messaged Horizon Hobbies and asked them which chassis so I could verify which parts to get. I do have metal axles on the front and rear. Now, I don't really know of a big performance increase on that. May add a little bit of weight. I haven't put it on a scale compared to the stock plastic axles, but they were super easy to put together. You have to take the internals out of your stock ones, stick them in here, add a little bit of black grease, whatever you got. A lot of people recommend marine grease for that. I did use the E-maxx steering servo horn that came with it. Now it's a 3-hole one, and I used the middle hole. It really seemed to work with no binding issues up front. I do still have a stock drive line in the front and rear, and I was just going to use those until they ended up going bad. The dog ears seemed to be fine in it, and that's after quite a lot of you know, tearing and bashing and crawling over rocks. They seem to hold up pretty well. They do have some aftermarket options for those, so should you go down that path, and they're really easy to change and take off. You may have to take the transmission plate and raise it a little bit. No issues. That's the wonderful thing about these little trucks, is that they're so easy to work on. There's so many parts available, and the B17 may be one of my favorites. With all that said, I'd like to show you guys how it performs since I've done all these modifications, and then you could be the judge. I actually have a track in my basement that me and my grandfather built. The lighting may be not ideal, but I'll show you guys what it does. Well, that's about all I have for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about it. I hope you learned something, maybe got some ideas for your own build, and I'll see you guys next time.